Item number 7, miscellaneous. A, Catherine Hobbs to address the council regarding forgiveness of sewer and water. Catherine?
I think 20% of Darren's blow went into my basement. I rented a house from Earl and Jackie Stone up on Park Avenue, and the water department came to turn on the water. After getting a plow to find it underneath the snow, they went inside, turned on all the water to make sure there was a flow and everything. They told me about it. I was there with them. And it's, so then they left and said, well, there was a little drip in the kitchen sink. I had not moved in at that point, just the water was on to clean up. They said, you're going to want to check that in a couple of days to make sure that drip in your kitchen sink isn't there. About a day and a half later, I walked to the front door. I could hear what sounded like a waterfall inside. Opened up the door, and they had left on the connection for the washer in the basement. There's 18,000 gallons of water in the basement. So I wasn't trying to get anybody in trouble or lay any blame, but I came out here and said, okay, could you please start my meter today rather than a day and a half ago? Because there was a problem with the installation, the hookup, turning it on. And got the general, we can't do anything about that. I said, but we can't do anything about it. I didn't know anything about the council, that you took things to the council. I had no idea. But anyway, spoke with people, and they said what probably happened was there was an ice flow or an ice lot, I think they called it in the line, that when it warmed up, then that water, in that day and a half, the water poured into the basement. And Earl Stone came down, or called down, to find out that it was the 18,000 gallons. That was the amount. But the point being, had that not been left on when they tested the water, when they tested those lines, there would not have been that water in the basement. They turned it on, didn't turn it off. So that's what my whole thing is about. I thought that just, I wasn't making any big deal about the horrible mess and all the cleanup that had to be done. I just thought starting the meter at that day was a reasonable, logical solution. That's all. Thank you.
Do you have questions, council members?
Oh,
For
sorry.
Catherine? Any discussion?
What doesn't it sound like there's a pipe, frozen pipe? Someplace.
That is a possibility.
There weren't any broken pipes. The water had been turned off, and then when they turned the water on in the pipes, and then turned it, they told me we tested all of the faucets. We turned on everything and turned it off again. But that one wasn't involved.
Don't they look at the meter to see if that's zero flowing?
Yes, I actually talked to Terry and Jason, who actually, it was not just a call for water, but it was also a call for gas service.
Yes.
And when they arrived at the location, they discovered that the meter was in the basement. The meter was not hooked up at that time. So they proceeded to install the actual meter back into place and turn the valve back on. You cannot turn a gas water heater on unless there's water in the tank, or you'll burn up the unit. So the water was turned on for that, was turned on as requested, and then of course once the tank was full, the gas was ignited underneath the heater. I also understand that at that time they started to recognize that there was some water that seemed to be coming in from the corner of the basement. Jason proceeded outside to actually turn off an outside faucet that was on already at that time. So I can't confirm or deny what faucets were on or what faucets were off, but I do know for a fact that according to Jason's record of this, there was a faucet on outside of the house when they actually did turn the water service on. I will point out that as far as this service goes, one of the reasons that we require the homeowner to be there when we turn service on is because it's not our responsibility to test to make sure that all the services are not running at the time that it's on. So the fact that he actually went out and turned that line on was a courtesy process that Jason actually took part in. I do know that on talking with them that the reason why they checked outside is when they turned the meter on, they noticed the meter started running fairly rapidly. After taking that, and my understanding, according to Terry, was their attempt to actually do something about the leak in the kitchen, they went back downstairs and reviewed the meter to see if the meter was actually still running, and at that time recorded the fact that there was no water running through the meter at the point when they were preparing to leave. I understand at that time the service was offered to be turned off again if Ms. Hobbs was not going to be there. Do you recollect that, Mrs.
That
Hobbs?
offer was not made, no.
And that at that time the water was left on, and their claim is that that was due to the fact that Ms. Hobbs wanted to clean that weekend and wanted to have water available for that purpose.
So, just to review, they left, the meter wasn't spinning.
That is their recollection of the situation, yes. It is our protocol to check the water meter before leaving to making sure that we don't see anything abnormal as we're beginning to leave.
If there was a valve open someplace in the house, that thing would have been singing.
You would believe so, unless there is I could foresee if there's a frozen plug somewhere that you could make an argument that there may not be a significant amount of water continuing to the flow, but there would at least be some, I would think, that would be registering.
Did you check with the plumber, Catherine, if I might ask?
I walked in, heard the waterfall sound from outside the door, obviously walked straight down to the basement. It was pouring out. The basement, the hookup for the washer was on all the way, turned all the way open. I turned it off, there was no more water coming out. And the leak in the sink was a drip in the faucet, that as soon as you tighten the faucet, the leak in the sink. But you acted like they did this miracle fixing a leak in the kitchen, but it was a leak, just the faucet wasn't turned all the way off.
So somehow or another, that valve got turned on.
They
After
turned
they
on
left.
they turned on all the valves.
After they left,
No.
they wouldn't have left the basement with a valve running.
Had there been a plug in there, an ice plug, there wouldn't have been any water coming through. The point is, there would have been no 18,000 gallons of water in the basement had that not been left open, that valve.
But you don't know if that valve was open already. Because it sounds like to me the house
I was down there with them. They told me, they said, we tested every faucet. They tested the two in the bathroom, they tested the toilet, they tested the kitchen,
I just can't see
washer, dryer.
there wouldn't be any ice in the line anywhere. Because they had that whole house drained, the way it sounds to me. Once they pulled the meter out, everything drains out.
It
So
was
there
on
couldn't-
all the way. The faucet was
No,
turned
but
all
what
the way
I'm
on.
saying is when they winterized the house, there was no water left in the house, so there's no way there could have been an ice plug in there anywhere.
Had these guys shut off the faucet, there wouldn't have been 18,000 gallons of water in the
How much
basement.
water was actually in the basement?
18,000 gallons,
Oh, but
according to your
You said the
records.
basement was flooded.
Did I say the basement was flooded? No.
Okay.
I said it was a mess and it was nasty to clean up. There are two drains in the basement, so the water was going down the drain. Of course, with the full flow coming out of that faucet, those little ground drains, weren't keeping up. There's probably only about 4 inches of water when I got there. But the drains, the drains were completely backed up. The 18,000 gallon is your measurement here at the city.